a lot of frameworks which provide this XSS command control capabilities. What do you think is the solution for cross-site scripting? Sorry? Server-side validation. Input validation. Again.
Sanitizing.
Validate? Correct. So essentially it is validating all user input. Either it comes through user-based parameters or through the hidden variables or through headers. Everything has to be validated based on, again, context of the application and implementing either a whitelist or a blacklist. In most cases a whitelist. Am I correct? Fine. Essentially again a problem of special characters, right? So special characters can be either whitelisted and blocked or they can be sanitized. For example, I have a feedback form in a financial website where the users will be required to enter saying that yesterday the percentage was less than 3.5% and tomorrow whatever. So there I cannot block less than and percentage. I need to sanitize it into a form which does not execute in the browser, which is typically either HTML encoded or encoded in some other form. For example, we can replace less than by %LT, which is HTML encoding. This is HTML encoding, and greater than by %TT, etc. So what will happen is on the browser it will display as less than and greater than, but if you view the source, it will not be a less than, it will be %LT. So that is how this should be done. Does SSL help in defending XSS? As we saw right now, no, it doesn't. Even, for example, here is an example of a banking application which was vulnerable to phishing, and it was over HTTPS, and on the login page it was vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Hence, phishing could be done on the login page itself. Okay. So, any doubts on this or any questions? Okay. We will quickly go into whether SSL protects against SQL, against all these attacks. How many of you think SSL protects against application security attacks? Or it gives us a reasonable level of security? It gives us a reasonable level of application security? Yes? How many say yes?
It gives a transaction security.
It gives transactional security? Or does it give communication security? Man in the middle attack, it would prevent, right? Yeah. Okay, we will see that. Okay, SSL is like this armored truck. Okay, what you put inside it is not the matter of SSL of this truck. It ensures that from the source to the destination, it will transport it in a secured way. So, if we have a bomb inside that armored truck, maybe for legitimate or illegitimate purpose, it will be transported securely. Similarly, if we were to put attacks into the SSL channel, they would be transported securely. Neither IDS nor firewall nor IPS etc. would detect it if the tunnel was to close at the backend. SSL ensures the authenticity of the server. It guarantees to the user that if XYZ bank has an SSL certificate, the browser guarantees or ensures that that this is that XYZ.com banking site. Because the way the SSL has been designed is such. I will just take you through quickly the. Okay, this is how SSL works. Essentially, there is a third-party certifying authority which gives this SSL certificate to the organizations who want it. So it is essentially like our passport issuing authority or our driving license issuing authority, which guarantees that yes, this guy is who he says he is. Similarly, digital certifying authorities guarantee that that particular bank or a travel site is what it says it is. Right? So that is how it does. So what happens is the website which wants the SSL certificate generates a private and public key pair, sends it to the certification authority, but sends only the public key. the certifying authority issues a certificate containing the public key of that website, and this certificate is then sent to the users henceforth. Okay, the browser has the capability to check whether this certificate is legitimate or not, because in the browser store there is a list of all the certifying authorities which are well known. Okay, essentially these are the steps. Whenever a browser connects to the server which is over HTTPS, the browser will request for a certificate. Server sends the certificate, browser checks the validity of the certificate and expiry date. And the domain name, etc., and sees what is the public key of the site. Browser then creates a session key, encrypts it with the public key of the site, sends it to the site. The site decrypts it using the private key. Now the session key is negotiated between the client and the server, and henceforth the session key is used to interact between the client and the server, and that is how encryption happens over SSL. This is a broad level concept. Specifics and algorithms, etc., may vary from SSL versions. SSL prevents man in the middle attacks by checking for the certificate, right? How many of you have seen this? Yeah? All of us, right? And how many of us have clicked no?
After being certificate.
Sorry?
After you view the certificate, you find it is not correct or the data is that you can click on it.
But before you knew about certificates and all, how many of you have clicked on no? Yes, and continue, right? Because we are in a hurry, we want our work to be done, right? What is this pop-up doing here? But that is where it is. This is where it depends on the user to give a go ahead or not. And that is where the problem is. 9 out of 10 users or 8 out of 10 users will say yes and go ahead. That is where man in the middle is not protected by SSL. Because SSL guarantees that the end user knows that the end server is legitimate or not. But if the user chooses to accept a wrong certificate, SSL doesn't do anything. It just transports everything over its channel. So, using the web proxy that we saw, we can handle SSL traffic also, because now what happens is, the web proxy creates a SSL session between itself and the browser, one session, and then a session between the server and the proxy. So there are two SSL sessions essentially. So whatever is sent from the browser is decrypted at the proxy, shown to you as clear text, because now the SSL certificate was negotiated between the proxy and the browser. The proxy issues a fake certificate posing as the legitimate site. The browser gives a pop-up, we say yes and go ahead. Okay, so this is a quick thing about SSL, where SSL does not protect against application security attacks, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, cross-site request for the so on and so forth. Cannot be protected using SQL. Okay, we've already discussed about sessions, session management. That a session is the way in which a web application maintains states between the user and the server, right? Let's say 12 years back, that is in 98, 97, 98, when initially this web application, etc. started coming, there was no concept of session management as such. The servers used to have authentication, which you may know as basic authentication or NTLM authentication, where the server used to pop up, something like this. Yeah, most of you would have seen this. Now this was used then. So there was a problem with this, that the users had to be defined on the server itself. There was no concept of database then being linked to an application. It was not scalable. Users could not log out, because once you are logged in, your session would be, your username password would be transmitted each time in the background while using basic authentication. And this was not a viable idea, and session management concept came in, where each of the framework built a session management module. For example, ASP.NET, PHP, Java, etc. have inbuilt session management frameworks which need to be used by the developer, right? To initiate sessions, maintain sessions, and finally to destroy sessions. Session management essentially is about giving a unique identification which is temporary for the user, checking it each time the user comes to the server. Two types of session management tokens are there. One is general tokens which are used to maintain user preferences. For example, you go to Amazon.com after 10 days and it says, hi, your name, or some other site. That is stored in persistent cookies. Okay? In general tokens. And then authentication tokens are assigned after you have logged in or you've authenticated to the server. As we said, 3 ways: URL, hidden form fields, and cookie headers. Typically, cookies are relatively safer because they are not logged in web server logs. Everything going on the URL are logged in each intermediate proxy and web server. They are not shared with external sites because of the single origin policy. Invisible to shoulder surfers because they go in the headers. Can be replayed from history. If you were to go back and do a refresh, the cookies could be replayed. So that is one issue. But then they are practical. See, URL parameters typically will work only with GET requests, and hidden form fields will work typically only with POST requests. But cookies will work with both, and they are practically more viable. Okay, probably details. Okay, I'll just talk about secure cookies. There is an attribute in a cookie where we can set it as a secure cookie, in which case the cookie is only transmitted if it is a SSL connection. If it is not a SSL connection, cookies are not transmitted. Example would be banking sites where the images are transmitted over HTTP, whereas the other content is transmitted over HTTPS. In that case, to fetch an image, when a request goes from the browser, if it is over HTTP, the cookies are not sent. Hence, it keeps the general request away from the authenticated request. Okay. What are the threats against such tokens? See, what is the threat against my ID? If suppose this is a very secret location and we are all meeting here for some high-level negotiations. This problem is if this ID is stolen, someone else can come in, right? That is called as token hijacking. Token hijacking can be done in 3 ways. One is, as we saw, cross-site scripting, which is a case of misdirected trust. Second is sniffing, if the communication channel is not encrypted. Third is brute forcing. If the session generation mechanism is not strong, then it can be brute force. These are the 3 ways by which sessions can be stolen. Account hopping. Account hopping. Let's say there is let's say we enter a certain restricted area. Within that restricted area, there are further restricted areas, right? So if I suppose enter a defense area, the ammunition section may be further restricted, wherein another ID card is required. In which case, I am issued a session at the gate. Once I go inside, I may get authorization and may be issued another pass, right? In many cases, in applications, we have seen that once you have been issued a session ID, session token, then you can directly access the other areas which are restricted for general users. This is what is called as account hopping. You log in as one user and try to see details of other users. That is a session management problem. We'll see that also. So essentially, these are the various threats against tokens. We will see a couple of demos also. I'm going ahead. Now this is where we have to focus. The best practices of securing mechanisms. It says strongly binds the token to specific user data. What does that mean? See, whenever I log into a banking site, okay, I have been issued a unique session ID, which is for me. Now when I select the account number, suppose I've got 3 accounts, I select the account number and I say display accounts, and in the proxy I'm able to change the account number to suppose someone else's. If the application is only authenticating the session ID, then it will authenticate and give the data of the user, of the other user also, because now there is no check whether this session and this account number is linked or not. That is what it means by binding the token to specific user data. So it is not enough to check whether the session is valid, but whether the session is valid and the specific parameter which is being requested for is available to the or is authorized to the session. See, there are 2 kinds of authentication which happens in web applications. One is user authentication, where you give a username password. After that, it is called an entity authentication, which is now the session ID, which is unique. So if I were to steal session of any other user, I will be able to log. That is the basic concept, simple concept, and that is what it is. Whether you take an application which is very complex, uses Ajax and all that, the basic session management concept remains the same.
Are you talking
The first one?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean by context setting?
This is about the setting on context in the web application, setting machine user specific client info.
Right. So if we suppose use a framework like Jazz, okay, that includes all these things, and yes, that would be related to this. So every user has a context. For that context, what are the specific variables, and they link the session ID to that. So for each request, not only the session ID is checked, but the context of each of the variables is checked, which you would be surprised to know is not done by many applications, even the critical one. See, there's a perception that the application is secure, but actually it is secure or not comes to light when we test it.
If I say I set a context, I am secure.
If you have set the construct appropriately, yes, you are secure. The application is secure. See, the securing applications is not difficult. Input validation, is it a new concept? Input validation is there for ages. When computers are not there, then also we have this concept of access control and input validation, is it? So input validation as a concept is not new, but it is a very simple concept, not implemented, because it is assumed. The developer assumes that if I have a account number field, why will my user give a name or some other character? That and the advent of JavaScript, they put all validations on the client side, and you've seen that the proxy will bypass all those validations. So that is the second problem. So securing is not difficult at all, it is just having a mindset. Use SSL or IPsec, this is just to protect against sniffing. Never include sensitive information in the token. Now token, as I said, maybe a cookie, maybe a URL, maybe a hidden form field. We have seen in couple of applications which have online shopping, where the price of the unit is kept as a hidden form field. It is an attack which was there 10 years back also, and it is still there. So a hidden form field says 10,000 rupees is the TV, and when the user clicks submit and catches the details on the web proxy, you can change the details from 10,000 to 2,000 and he purchases it. We have seen this in hotel booking sites, where hotels say 5,000 rupees per night, and we change it to 5 rupees, and it is accepted, your reservation slip is with you. And it works. I will show you a demo on this context. Again, for people who have been doing audits, this will be very simple, but for others, this will be of some insight. See, here what I will do is, I will switch on my proxy. Okay, we've got a module called funds transfer. Okay, so we've got the from account and the to account, which is typical of all applications. Let's say I select the same from and to accounts, and I give an amount of 10,000. Okay. Now I say submit. See, the first pop-up, it says please choose different accounts. Okay, so I know one rule from this, that I cannot transfer amount to the funds to the same account. Okay, first rule is. Now I'll change this to another account, let's say 550550. I say submit. It says amount cannot be more than 5,000. This is the second restriction in the application. And suppose I give a negative amount. This is the third restriction in the application, where it says amount cannot be 0. It's very obvious. So I give an amount within 5,000. Let's say I give 5,000 itself. I fire the proxy and say submit. The entire traffic is captured in the proxy, and if you see what is interesting here is